It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Rico Brogna, episode number 600. Oh, we made a milestone. 600. I am in a very pissed off mood. I thought that maybe hours would change my point of view. More information would change my point of view. But as we record this, Rico Brogna, I'd say about 10 hours after the news broke that Edwin Diaz is signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers, I'm freaking pissed. So I'm going to warn everybody. I'm going to warn you. If you tuned into the Rico and said, oh, I just want some rational Mets talk. I want Evan to make me feel better. I want this to be spun in a nice, positive way. I want analytical discussions on how to replace Edwin Diaz. You have come to the wrong place. Now, does that change in episode 601 or episode 602 or episode 603? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know my feelings on Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, or January 5th. I can merely tell you that December 9th, 2025 absolutely stunk. It was one of the dark days in the history of the New York Mets. And I fully acknowledge that I hope we can go back, play the clips from this Rico or my show with Tiki and laugh and say, remember when you were so pissed about Edwin Diaz? Remember when you were so devastated by Diaz going to LA? Remember when you were so worried about Devin Williams being the closer of the New York Mets? Remember when you were so fearful of the Los Angeles Dodgers? Remember when you didn't trust David Stearns? I hope eventually we will get to that point, but that is not happening today. That's what you're not going to get from the Rico Brogna. What you're going to get from the Rico today, even 10 hours after Edwin Diaz left, is the sounds of a Met fan that is pissed off. And the sounds of a Met fan, I cannot make this any more clear to David Stearns and Steve Cohen. I don't trust you. Simple. And I speak for many Met fans when I say we don't trust you. Sorry. I know the goodwill of Juan Soto a year ago should have made it that we do blindly trust you, and we should believe and we should say, chill out, guys, calm down. There's so much more left in the offseason. Don't worry about it. Now it is on you. It's on you, David Stearns. I'm smiling like David Stearns. Everything is so great. I'm so happy. And I'm so smart because I'm smarter than all of you. It is on you to make moves to make us feel better. But let's go through what happened on Tuesday, December 9th. You allowed the best closer in the history of this franchise, or at least the best closer in my lifetime. You want to tell me it's Tug McGraw? I am not going to fight anybody. You want to tell me it was Jesse Orosco? That's fine. In my lifetime, as a 42-year-old Met fan, I've seen all the other closers. I've seen John Franco. I've seen Bobby Parnell. I've seen Armando Benitez. I've seen Braden Looper. I've seen Billy Wagner. I've seen Jairus Familia. I saw Luis Ayala try to clean up the crap that was the end of the 2008 season. We've seen them all. The guy you just allowed to go to Los Angeles was the best of all of them. So it is a dark day in the history of the New York Mets. It is a dark day that a guy who came here, and he came here in controversy. He came here with us complaining about Brodie Van Wagenen taking on Robinson Cano's contract. He came here and then fell flat on his face in his first year. I fully admit I was one of many that gave up on Edwin Diaz in 2019. But what made Edwin Diaz such a great New York Met wasn't the way it began, but it was the way he answered that. Was what he did in 21 and 22 specifically, and even 24 when he lost his job in the middle of the season, to what he did last year in 2025 when he was without question the MVP of this team that you put together, David Stearns. He was the MVP. You allowed that guy to walk out the door. And here's the beautiful thing. Here's the reality. I'll read to you over the next however long we do this podcast, all the reports, all of what may have happened. Oh, but Edwin didn't give the Mets a chance to match. Or Edwin was upset, according to Jeff Passan, that the Mets didn't tell him about Devin Williams. You can give me whatever excuse you want, and I know later we'll go through it. I will speak for most Met fans when I say we don't care. I don't care. I don't care that you're stunned. I don't care that he didn't come back and give you a chance to match. You lost him. This is on your watch. This is on David Stearns' watch. This is on Steve Cohen's watch. And as we've talked about on the Rico for months, it is very difficult to replace him. You want to tell me how good Devin Williams was in Milwaukee? I know. We all know how good he was. But what Devin Williams knows, and what you know, and every Met fan knows, is it's one thing to be a middle reliever with the New York Yankees in a contract year. It's one thing to be the closer of the Milwaukee Brewers. It's another thing to now be the unquestioned closer of the New York Mets, replacing Edwin Diaz in New York City. We're already, fair or not, Devin Williams has heat on him from Met fans who don't trust him. So what made Edwin Diaz special was not just the stats that we can go through. It was the fact that he proved he could handle this town, that he could handle us, that he could handle the media, that he could handle fearsome National League East lineups like Kyle Schwarber, and like he could get slapped in the face, which he did in 2019, which he did in game 161, and always respond. That's a part of the greatness of Edwin Diaz. And this team president, with his smile, he's so happy, and Steve Cohen, the billionaire owner, you failed. You have failed. And so what I'm going to have to comprehend, and every Met fan is going to have to comprehend, is the line I gave about Jacob deGrom a couple of years ago. He's gone, and he's not coming back. And unlike deGrom, where you could at least convince yourself that he was always gone, you allowed this to happen. Now, let me explain how you allowed this to happen. You played a game last year with Pete Alonso, and you won. And that was the game of, hey, Pete, good luck, get a big offer, come back to us. If you do well, we'll see if we can match it. And Pete Alonso and Scott Boras fell flat on their face. They could not get what they wanted, and they could not get something to bring back to the Mets to scare them. So what ended up happening? David Stearns won the stare down. He did. And they got Pete Alonso back on their terms and on their contract on a short-term deal. Sure, they paid him a lot of money, but they won. You cannot do that with every single person in negotiations. Why can't you do that? Because Edwin Diaz is the best closer in baseball. It was always going to be a market for him. And the fact that you lowballed him, and yes, I'll say it, you lowballed him to the point where 3 years and $69 million was the highest offer, where you were telling Edwin and his agent, we may have some wiggle room, but yeah, here's 3 years, $66 million. Do you not think for a second, and we're going to all speculate about this for weeks and months at a time, right? Maybe even years at a time. You don't think that your handling of that negotiation may have turned Edwin Diaz off? May have been what caused him to say, F you guys. I'm just going to take this offer with the Dodgers because the Mets aren't the Dodgers. They're not as good as the Dodgers. And David Stearns, as smart as you are, and you are so smart and you love to smile, you're not Andrew Friedman. And I can't stand Andrew Friedman. None of us can stand him. But you know what he did? He outsmarted you. And if you tell me I'm wrong, well, you weren't a part of the negotiations, Evan. What the hell do you know? You know what I say? I don't care. You lost. And we lost. Because whether it went that way or not, you allowed Edwin Diaz, the best closer in my lifetime, the best closer in baseball, you allowed him to go to the Dodgers on a reasonable contract. You allowed that to happen. So the games you played since the moment Edwin Diaz opted out, it may have worked on Pete Alonso. It failed miserably. You got cute. You played games. And I want to say you deserve it But we don't deserve it. We don't deserve that. Steve Cohen said, show up, fill up my building. I got you, Juan Soto, now show up. And we did. And then the team failed miserably. And you have begun the offseason, and I'm not even going to bring up the Nimmo trade, to be determined. But you played games with Edwin Diaz. And if the Mets are leaking this stuff out to try to make themselves look good, like if they're leaking out, gee golly, we never got a chance to match. We told Edwin, we've got some wiggle room on this 3-year, $66 million deal. If you leak that out to make yourself look good, if you leak that out to make Edwin Diaz look bad, you look bad. It backfires. That was your big offer to the best closer of baseball? Your big offer was to play a game with the Los Angeles Dodgers? I got news for the Met fans. I got news for David Stearns if he doesn't realize it. And I got news for billionaire Steve. The LA Dodgers are a lot more appealing than us. They've got better weather. And guess what? They're a lot better than us. And they just got even more better than us, if that's correct grammar, probably not, by taking away the best closer in baseball. And you allowed that to happen because you got cute in negotiations. You allowed that to happen. Now, for everyone pissed off at Edwin Diaz because, Edwin wanted to not come back. Clearly, that's what it shows. Maybe you're right. Maybe Edwin Diaz was so turned off by the weather or the locker room, or maybe he was just intoxicated by going to LA, pulling a Kevin Durant, if you will, getting an easy championship by going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Maybe that's the case. But you again allowed it to happen, which is why as this day has gone on, and I mentioned on the radio show I did, that I'm mad at everybody. And I am mad at everybody. I'm mad at Stearns. I'm mad at Cohen. I'm mad at Diaz. I'll be honest with you. As the day has gone on, my anger at Edwin Diaz is actually moving away. It's more at Stearns. It's more at Cohen. Because Edwin Diaz was a free agent. He had every right to go out and find the best offer. And what I have always said for as long as I've been on the radio is free agency is scary. Anytime you let a player go to free agency, you risk something like this happening. You risk the idea that a really good team, a better team, maybe a team with less taxes in the state they play, not the case with the Dodgers, but you give yourself the risk of losing a player. It's why when they locked up David Wright a decade ago, it meant so much, because if they allowed David to get to free agency and even have a meeting with the Philadelphia Phillies or even have a meeting with the New York Yankees, there was that chance he was going to be gone. That is, there's a chance that you're going to let the guy leave because you're allowing so many other teams to talk to that player. And so sometimes you have to be aggressive. And clearly they weren't aggressive enough. And they failed. Now, is it all over? Is this? No, look, I'm not. I'll be emotional today. I know there is a way that you can pivot. I know they can still spend a lot of money and add a lot of really good players. I get that. It doesn't mean you can't win a championship because Edwin Diaz isn't there. I am not suggesting that, as emotional as I am today. But you still allowed a guy who was battle-tested in New York. You allowed a guy who was a great Met. You allowed that guy to go to the Dodgers for 3 years, $69 million. And you can tell me every reason why it's not your fault. It's your fault because you still allowed him to walk out that door and sign with the champs. He didn't sign a 5-year, $125 million deal. And by the way, maybe myself and others would still complain and say, you're the Mets, you're Steve Cohen. You got to find a way to match that. But that's not even what happened. This is a bad day to be a Met fan. It's a horrible day to be a Met fan. Now, my hope, and I'm not confident about it, but my hope is that this offseason will still be good, that they'll still find a way to keep Pete Alonso, that they'll add another top-end reliever, and both that guy and Devin Williams will have great years, and maybe guys we're not even thinking of will contribute great to this bullpen, and the Mets will have a great bullpen, and they'll have great success. And again, we will laugh. We'll chuckle at how emotional I was and others were by what happened on December 9th. But there is no spinning that in this moment, on this day, this stinks. The best closer in my lifetime walked out the door for a contract that if I told you a week ago was the contract he would sign, we'd all say, that's easy. That's an easy deal. 3 years, $69 million. And so if the story is Edwin Diaz wanted to leave, the follow-up will be why? Was it something the Mets did in negotiations? Was it something that happened in August and September? Was it the locker room? Was it the weather? What was it? Because until proven otherwise, here's the way I look at a story like this. You can leak to me whatever you want. You can tell me whatever you want. David Stearns can spin it however he wants. But right now, you lost him. And that's all that matters. He's not a Met now. That's all that matters. Not, it wasn't fair. He didn't give us a chance to match. It does not matter. You lost him. Now let's go over some of the things that are being reported, like Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan said on SportsCenter that Edwin Diaz, I'll actually read it for you so it can be exact. Oh, by the way, Gregory Soto is a former Met. He signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So for anyone who worried about Gregory Soto coming back, 1 year, $7.5 million to go to Pittsburgh. ESPN's Jeff Passan said on SportsCenter Tuesday night that what went wrong between the Mets and closer Edwin Diaz. According to Passan, the split between Diaz and the Mets started when the pitcher did not get a call giving him a heads up about the decision to sign Devin Williams to a 3-year contract on December 3rd. Now, he's a free agent, so that's perhaps understandable, but he was not happy about that, Passan said about the reported lack of communication. So did the Mets need to have bedside manner with Edwin Diaz and inform him, hey, we just signed Devin Williams? You know why I kind of lean towards yeah? And I'm no expert on how you communicate with players and agents during free agency. So I'm going to use my noggin, or at least I'm going to try. If you are a player and you are a free agent and your agent is doing all the talking with David Stearns, I assume, or Steve Cohen, and all of a sudden you find out, not through them, but you just find out that they have signed an elite level closer, which is what Devin Williams used to be prior to last year with the Yankees, an elite level closer, a top 5 closer in the sport. If that comes out, is it not fair to say, oh, are they replacing me? Are they moving on from me? Is that not a fair wonder? So the bedside manner, I would assume, I'm just using logic here, would be to call up the agent or even Edwin himself and say, hey, just want to let you know, we love you. We want you back. Ideally, Devin Williams is the 8th inning guy. Obviously, if things don't work out between us, we feel pretty good about who our closer is, but we want you. We love you. We want you to be a New York Met. I think some may hear a report like this and again, blame Edwin Diaz. Just blame him. He's the schmuck. It's all his fault. It's not Stearns' fault, not Cohen's fault. They're perfect. Get rid of them. It's all Edwin Diaz's fault. I see this story, and I'm trying to be fair because at the end of the day, my rooting interest is I'm a Met fan. That's my rooting interest. That's your rooting interest. Not who's right, not who's wrong, not who I want to blame. It's we don't have Edwin Diaz on our team. That's what we're upset about. But I guess I can understand why Edwin Diaz would maybe want to know, hey, they're not replacing me. They're signing Devin Williams in conjunction with me. So I see a report like that, and I say, okay. Another idea was he's upset about Jeremy Hefner. Look, the Mets have to make decisions, and this is where I'll defend the Mets. I'll show some fairness. The Mets have to make decisions on their pitching coach and their coaching staff, not based on the opinion of one pitcher, not based on Edwin Diaz. They have to make that decision based on what's best for the franchise. And if the Mets, off of a colossal failure that was 2025, deemed they need to change the pitching coach, I understand it. It was a failure of a year. And what's funny about the decision to move on from Hefner is it feels like during the season, at least interacting with Met fans on this podcast, it feels like most Met fans wanted to get rid of Jeremy Hefner. Like, hey, we have to blame somebody for why the pitching has failed. And look, it was a collective failure. It wasn't just Hefner. David Stearns made bad decisions. Guys didn't perform. You have to blame the players themselves. Like, it's everybody. It's one of those things where you blame everybody. But hearing that Diaz may have been hurt about that, I just, whatever. Okay. I mean, you're not making decisions on the coaching staff based on keeping Edwin Diaz happy. And I also have a tough time believing that would be his reason to leave. His reason to leave may have been as simple as the Dodgers give me a better chance to win, which is obvious. Nobody can argue. And also as simple as they didn't respect me. And I know some people hear that and they say, how can you not be respected? They're paying you $22 million a year. When you opt out of a contract and you're negotiating, you want to feel wanted. And I don't know what the Mets' bedside manner was on Edwin Diaz. Were they aggressive? Did they make a strong offer? Honestly, it doesn't sound like it, because here we are a month into the offseason, a little over a month into the offseason, and their best offer was 3 years, $66 million. I'm sorry, it's not that impressive, considering the contract he opted out of, considering the Blue Jays and the Dodgers are looming threats. That doesn't feel like some aggressive offer. So this pivot into blaming Edwin Diaz is not fair, because we don't know what led to Edwin Diaz wanting to get the hell out of here. But here's the lesson I think I've learned. And I guess we'll find out in the next few days and weeks if I'm right. They do not care. Maybe rightfully so. They do not care what you think or I think or our emotion towards specific players or players that have been here. They do not care. They traded Brandon Nimmo, jury is still out, for a declining second baseman, okay, which is what he is, and Marcus Semien. I hope the decline stops, but he's been a declining player for multiple years. They did not care what that meant to some Met fans. And I admit, losing Brandon Nimmo didn't hurt me at my core. They let Edwin Diaz walk out that door, and all right, we'll be fine. And I am convinced Pete Alonso is as good as gone. I'm convinced of that for a few reasons. Number one, what I just said, they do not care how you or I or anyone else feels about specific players that have done a lot for this franchise. Nimmo, Diaz, all within a few weeks. I don't think there's any strong connection to keeping Pete Alonso. David Stearns wants his team. He wants his team. That's why his closer is now the closer. And according to, I forget who had this report now, Anthony DeComo. Let me check my Mets text chat to see who texted it. But someone basically said that David Stearns is fine with Devin Williams as the closer. That's fine. No big deal. We like him. We had Devin Williams in Milwaukee. We trust him. I think it was Mike Puma. So they'll allow Pete Alonso to walk away. And based on the fact that Kyle Schwarber signed a 5-year contract, and someone needs to explain to me, because I try to be a student of the game. I can be wrong plenty. Teach me. Teach me like I'm an imbecile. Why is Kyle Schwarber getting 5-year contracts and Pete Alonso is not getting any of that, at least as of yet? Like, Kyle Schwarber got 5-year offers from multiple teams. He's 2 years older. He's a full-time DH instead of what Alonso looks to be, which is a part-time DH. I mean, they're not separated by that much offensively if you look at their numbers over the last 4 years. So why, especially when it comes to years, why are so many more teams so willing to give Kyle Schwarber 5 years and there's a hesitation on Pete? Well, I believe a team will give Pete Alonso an offer greater than 3 years. Maybe not 5, maybe 5. I don't know. If the Orioles were willing to give Schwarber 5, why wouldn't they give Pete Alonso 5? And Mark Feinsand reports the Mets aren't budging from 3, which I've also heard. They don't want to give Pete Alonso a long-term contract. So how does this all add up? Someone's going to give it to him, and they're going to lose him. And so we are watching an offseason in which the smartest guy in the room, David Stearns, is going to teach us all about baseball with a smile on his face. And the great Steve Cohen, who's got his casino coming. I'm very happy for him. They're going to watch Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, and Brandon Nimmo walk out that door. And as of right now, It's Devin Williams, who had a miserable year with the New York Yankees, and you could tell me all day how good his under-the-hood numbers are and how bad luck he pitched to. He also had to deal with New York. I am not fully convinced that New York is going to be no biggie for Devin Williams, especially in a closer's role. They're going to lose those three guys, and how are they going about replacing them? Kyle Schwarber's out. He's going back to Philly. They're going to sign Kyle Tucker? No, they're not. Where are they going? Where are they going? This is shaping up to be an awful offseason. And I wish I could sit here and be more rational and calm and optimistic and positive, but I'm not, because I'm being real with you. I'm pissed off. I am pissed off at this franchise, and I hope I can eat my words, but as of right now, I'm angry. I got a lot of emails. We got tons of, it is overwhelmed with emails in which, I'm going to be honest with you, 97% of them were very pissed off at the Mets. So I want to look for those that are defending the Mets. I want to look for those that are saying, hey, it's no big deal that Edwin Diaz is gone, because I want to be fair, but there aren't a lot of Met fans who feel that way. Pete Hoffman, how do you feel? Are you in a good mood on this legendary Tuesday in which they lost Edwin Diaz to the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Hey, Ev, how you doing, buddy?
Terrible.
Listen, all I'm going to say is this. I don't want to be too mean because you basically did it for me, and I've been feeling this way for a little bit. I don't know why I started to feel this way before anything else really happened, but you nailed it. Like, I don't trust Steve Cohen. I don't trust David Stearns at all, and I'm glad that you said it. Pete Alonso's gone. They do not want. They have their way of looking at things, and they're not. David Stearns is not budging for anyone, and I don't understand how you could build a franchise that you say is going to be family friendly. That's what they said all last year was about family. It's about building all this stuff. Bring the it's going to be fun. My ass. Everything that is fun about this team is going out the window. Everything that we're getting excited about is going out the window, and we're going to sit here and cross our fingers that David Stearns is so freaking smart that he can nail Devin Williams and turn him around. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? This is arguably the dumbest, not even worst, but the dumbest offseason, and it's barely even started. It's a month old. It's the dumbest offseason already. It's terrible. Sorry.
No, I'm just listening. I'm digesting everything. It's a dumb offseason. All right, fair enough. It's a depressing offseason, I'll tell you that. I do have one email right away that says, Evan, I'm embarrassing myself, so let's go with this. Taylor writes, Evan, you're embarrassing yourself. 3 years, $66 million is a low ball. The same term he got in a record AAV, which they only beat by $1 million. Get a grip, Evan. You're better than this. I am not better than this, Taylor. It is a low ball offer, and I'll tell you exactly why. He opted out of a contract. So to say, well, we just gave him the same thing, but a few $1 million more, why did he opt out? He opted out to shatter or do a lot better than what he just walked away from. So maybe we have different definitions of low balls. Obviously, they didn't offer him a pay cut from his previous contract, but playing along with this offseason and thinking about what Diaz not only was going to get, I assumed a lot more than 3 years, $66 million. So if I assume that, and a lot of people in baseball assume that, and that's the last offer the Mets got to make for Edwin Diaz, then I would say low ball. Let me read some of more of your emails. I apologize. They have been coming in all day long, so I have this bias towards reading the more recent ones, which is not fair. So I will scan them and try to go back to 11:30 a.m. Juan writes, happy 600. On what was meant to be a joyous occasion of the Rico Brogna coming to the age of 600 episodes and hopefully positive bet news, we were greeted with reports of Edwin Diaz leaving the Mets. That makes me angry and sad, but to my fellow viewers, do not look so gloomy. We have yet to see what the 2026 Mets are all about. So let's not write them off instantly. Let's hope that something lines up for us in the coming days. We've reached 600 Ricos, and tonight we get to weep together at what happened with Edwin Diaz, with Evan Roberts, and Pete Hoffman. And then he says a lot of nice things. Thank you, JC. Yes, things can turn around. Things can be better. But right now, I'm not in the mood for it. That's the bottom line. Yes, this can still be a good offseason. I haven't said they're missing the playoffs. I haven't channeled Frank the Tank and said they're losing 190 games. I'm just telling you, right now, this sucks. And it's a dark day in Met history. That's the reality. And I don't think I'm over-exaggerating. I think Diaz was that impactful of a Met. And to lose him, and maybe this is the part that I'm burying a little bit, they lost him to the Dodgers. The goal is winning a world championship. And you lost him to the team in your league coming off of 2 world championships, a team that the Mets were outclassed by 2 seasons ago when everything broke right in 2024. Tom from Eatontown writes, Evan, I just deleted Narco from my playlist. He's dead to me. Stearns will be dead to me, too, if he doesn't get this team into the very least, win the NL East and make it to the World Series. I'm not sure what he's doing, but this team went from 83 wins to a below 500 team with the move so far. As you said, let's hope we're laughing in October. Let's hope so. Jonathan writes, Evan and Pete, what if Cohen and Stearns felt as if Diaz was just going to use them to bid up his price with the Dodgers? Cohen doesn't seem like the kind of guy to take kindly to that. Would that explain why there didn't seem to be much of a bidding war? You might say that they should have bid him up against the Dodgers to pay more, but they have a seemingly unlimited budget. At what point do you tell Diaz to walk? I would have done the same. Sorry for the rampant speculation. I think that speculation is wrong. I think the Mets were stunned that Diaz didn't come back. And they thought they would get another opportunity to beat the offer that the Dodgers made. And by the way, even if you feel like you're being used to drive up a price, wouldn't you do that when you're competing with the LA Dodgers? They're a team in your league. Drive up the price. I know it feels like they have unlimited funds, but even if that was true, and I don't necessarily agree with that, Jonathan, I would bid up the price. They're the Dodgers. Daniel writes, this franchise has seen many dark days, especially in recent memory, but this one ranks at the top. It's not necessarily the fact that you've lost the franchise's best closer and someone who might go down as one of the top 20 relievers of all time by the time he retires. It's the fact that he flat out didn't want to be here anymore. It's not like the contract offers were vastly different and he took more money. The difference was a measly $3 million. Edwin Diaz saw an opportunity to go somewhere better. He took it, and we have to live with that. We are not a franchise players to go seek stability and an opportunity to win. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. I don't care what Juan Soto said last year when he signed. Steve Cohen and David Stearns have failed in that aspect. Today has been humiliating, and I'm not sure what moves can be made to make us feel better. We stink. We stink. I think that the making us feel better move is bringing back Pete Alonso, but the making us feel better is winning and having all of this work out, which unfortunately you can't do right now. Let's go to Edward. Edward writes, December 8th, a day that will live. Interesting day for the Mets. Big picture, in any sport, you have to give GMs, coaches, and players time. 1 to 2 years isn't enough. I want the Mets to be the type of team that has minor leaguers come up, fill spots. I want them to build. On the other side, I want them to go out there and compete and get talented players. To some degree, those are competing thoughts. I'm okay if the Mets don't trade for Skubal. I prefer to see Sproat develop, maybe by the end of the season, and Tong ready in 2027, and then trade them away. I'm not sure what that means either. I apologize. All that said, it's hard to really get David Stearns. With Diaz and Alonso, it feels like what occurred with Jacob deGrom. With Stearns, I got to be honest with you. I got to skip this email, Edward. I don't know what you're talking about. And I have a headache. I'm sorry. Brian writes, hey, Evan. Agreed with every bit of your monologue today on The Fan. Thank you for being the voice of Met fans. Thank you. I'm sorry if you disagree. Losing Edwin Diaz is not just bad for baseball, it's bad for business. Of course, Edwin Diaz is the best closer in baseball and was the only member of the Mets bullpen that we consistently trusted. Beyond that, he was an attraction for the casual fans coming to Citi Field. Diaz became a massive reason why the non-diehards enjoyed going to games and staying invested until the end. I refused to leave games early, and over the last few years, Diaz and the Trumpets were the reason I'd always be able to convince my non-baseball fan fiance to stay all 9 innings with me. The trumpets were a spectacle. I kind of get that. I certainly understand that with the kids. Like, both of my sons thought the trumpets were awesome. One of my son's elves, the elf on the shelf, he actually named Eddie after Edwin Diaz a couple of years ago. Named him Eddie. And so when I told my oldest son the news, I said, Edwin Diaz has left the Mets. Actually, I didn't get to tell him. My wife told him. And she said, Jet, Edwin Diaz left the Mets. And he was very disappointed. And then he followed up by saying, to whom? And the Dodger thing, according to my wife, bothered him a lot more than him just leaving. But I spoke to my son a few hours later. It was actually about an hour ago before I put him to bed. And I said, you have a right to change your elf's name. You named him Eddie a couple of years ago, but if you want to change it, change it. And he actually stuck with Eddie. So maybe that's a sign that Edwin Diaz does deserve a tribute video when he comes back in July. Mikey from Manassas writes, Edwin Diaz felt disrespected with wiggle room. Think about it. Dude's been a Met for 6 years, gone above and beyond, represented the Mets brand perfectly. His reward was Stearns not focusing on him. The term wiggle room is inherently disrespectful. It implies that they know they are losing, bailing you, and either are too desperate or too stupid to not accept their offer. The Mets needed to give an offer, stand pat, and sell the legacy. 3 years, 72, 4 years, 85 would have done the trick. Imagine using the word wiggle room in negotiations. You'll get eaten alive. When can we get someone with a set on them like Dave Dombrowski? Dave Dombrowski is a Hall of Fame general manager, clearly, with Philadelphia, Detroit, Florida. I mean, guy's been all over the place. It's possible. Like, I do lean towards there may have been some disrespect in the negotiations, even if David Stearns doesn't think he actually did it, or Steve Cohen doesn't actually think they do it. Like, there are 3 sides to every story. The Mets have their side, Diaz will have his side, and of course, there's the truth. So I can't rule out that wiggle room or the way the offers were presented or Devin Williams may have not contributed to the disrespect. Or he wanted to go to LA because the Dodgers give him a great chance to win. Matthew writes, Evan, I'm listening to our Lord and Savior David Stearns talking on Mets Hot Stove. He just said the goal is to put together a very competitive team. That's not the goal. The goal is to put together a perennial World Series winning team. That is where David Stearns is lost. He will refuse to give Alonso more than 3 years, and Pete may be playing in Fenway Park in 2026 for the next 6 seasons. What a fall from grace. I'm going to do everybody a favor. What we've done on the Rico and we'll continue to do is we listen to David Stearns' press conferences and then we react. That was episode 599 if you missed it. We are not doing that today because, quite frankly, I'm not in the mood. I don't want to hear him. I've already heard him, but I don't want to hear him. So we will do that on the next Rico Brogna. So if you are interested in hearing from David Stearns, who's going to explain with a smile on his face all the great things that could happen in the offseason, and, we'll see. We'll see what we can do. We'll do that on the next Rico Brogna. But today is not the day. I don't want to hear it. I'm not in the mood. I don't want to hear any spin. I don't need to hear about how wrong I am and how great the Mets are and how smart they are. I'm not in the freaking mood. Not in the mood. Andrew writes, guys, I've never emailed before, but this really sucks. We're pinching pennies for the best in baseball. It seems like a faulty process, if only on a 3-year deal. That's where it seems so flawed. This team needs a change, and I understand that we have to let him make moves and see where it goes, but they seem to be delusional about certain things, and confidence can't be high. Who would give much for Senga with what they said just for them to say the offers aren't good? They seem to just be subtracting with stories about looking to deal David Peterson now. They aren't closing on guys, and lost their closer seems appropriate for everything Stearns and the Mets have done so far in 2025. Yeah, there is a report they're listening on David Stearns, on David Peterson. I've got no problem with listening. I've always said that. My reaction is, what's the trade? Would I give David Peterson away? Absolutely not. But listening on a player, I don't have an issue with.
Here's a dumb question, Ev. And we haven't really talked about this at all. Are we part of a rebuild that we just didn't know about?
No.
You sure?
They just traded for a 34-year-old second baseman.
I mean, they got
35-year-old second baseman. I apologize.
right, and the reason why they made that trade was to cut off Simeon, get Simeon out of here sooner than later. Where Nimmo, we'd have 5 years of him.
Well, I think a side benefit maybe is the shortness of the contract, but no, I don't think you make that trade. I think what we are witnessing is that, and we're starting to get a track record now on David because he's been the team president for 3 years, is other than Soto, which I commend Steve Cohen and David Stearns for. I am not taking that away. I am still very happy that they brought Juan Soto in, but what we are seeing in every other negotiation is they've got their hard, fast rules. Like, they're not comfortable going long-term on starting pitchers unless they're really young. They weren't comfortable with going harder on negotiations with Edwin Diaz. They were never going to go to a 5th year. Obviously, it didn't even turn out to be in that ballpark. Pete Alonso, same thing. He won't go past 3 years. And I think what David Stearns needs to learn, and yes, I'm going to talk down to him now. He's so smart. What he needs to learn is that sometimes you have to do uncomfortable things. Like, I don't think Dave Dombrowski wanted to give Kyle Schwarber a 5-year contract. Like, I think if you ask Dave, who's a really smart baseball guy and is a Hall of Famer, is it smart to give Kyle Schwarber, a 34-year-old, 33-year-old DH, a 5-year deal? He would tell you no. But he would also tell you we didn't want to lose the player. And we were going to lose him if we didn't go to a 5th year. We were going to lose him to Baltimore or Cincinnati because both of those teams offered 5th years. So sometimes you got to do things that are uncomfortable to get a player. And what David Stearns needs to start doing for players he wants, I assume there are players he wants, is sometimes you got to get uncomfortable. And I think that's the issue. And that's always been the issue. And they got away with it last year because nobody came in hard on Pete Alonso. But they're steadfast on, well, we're not going more than 3 years. Well, sometimes you have to. And I think what Dombrowski did with Schwarber is an example of that because they went to 5 years to ensure that they would keep the player.
Here's the last thing is that David Stearns has put himself in a spot now because I think the Nimmo one hurt a lot of people, a lot of diehard that love Brandon Nimmo, but losing Diaz, and we know the value of Diaz. I don't want to compare him to Mookie Betts, but legitimately, that is a Heim Bloom move of basically getting rid of one of your best players, and that's one of the first moves you do, and that's going to backfire. That could be the end of David Stearns if he can't get this thing right this season. I got to be honest.
It's not going to be the end of David Stearns. I'll save you and I'll save everyone else the time. He's not getting fired after year 3.
If he misses the playoffs?
Yes, he's not getting fired. Just gonna let you know. You could be mad at me. I'm just giving you the information. He's not being fired after year 3.
All right. Well,
nor would I want to. Like, as mad as I am, I think firing team presidents every 2 or 3 years is stupid, and it's bad for business, and it's dysfunctional organizations. So I won't go to that extreme. I'll yell and scream. I'll give strong opinions. I think that's crazy. Regev writes, please calm down, man. I like that. My name is Regev, and the Rico is my favorite podcast. It's because you usually see what most of us can't and have a unique angle on a lot of subjects. When I saw your reaction today, I was shocked. 3 years ago, our minor league system was one of the worst in baseball. And today, we're top 5 at least. Let the man work, and enough with the panic. Thanks for the show. And say hi to that closet Yankee fan. I don't know who the closet Yankee fan is. Look, Regev, that is why I read your email right after I said what I said to Hoff. I am not firing David Stearns. That's stupid. I am not attacking everything he's done, whether it's building the farm system or where the farm system is or other aspects of this team. I get that. I am reacting to the fact that one of the best closers in the sport and a guy who I think gives the Mets the best chance to win is no longer here. And he's no longer here on a contract that feels very reasonable. So I'll dust myself off and be a little bit more reasonable in the next few days. But on Tuesday, December 9th, no, I'm going to be pissed off and I'm not going to calm down. But I appreciate you suggesting it. Clinton writes, goddamn Diaz. Screw Edwin Durant. If he don't want to be here, he can go. F him and those stupid trumpets. My biggest worry from all that is this is just another log on the salary cap fire. This is exactly the kind of move that will further drive the vast majority of small market owners and coupon cutting Hal to lock out the players for a long time next year. So next winter, spring and summer, when I'm listening to the Rebecca Lobo NY Liberty podcast, we can thank Edwin Durant for helping us leave us without baseball for the 2027 calendar year. The Dodgers are doing nothing wrong. I want to make that very, very clear. I am jealous of the Dodgers. I think we all envision what the Dodgers are doing as being us. That's a part of the disappointment that we as Met fans have. That when Steve Cohen bought the team, he was not only rescuing us from the Wilpon era, but he was going to be Scrooge McDuck. He was going to be what the Dodgers are. Win championships by this player. Win championship by that player. I actually respect the Dodgers. Now, I hate them because they are a National League team who has a history layered with our franchise. So I hate them from a competitive standpoint, but I respect them because I want to be them. And every single person listening also wanted to be them. We envisioned that this would be us, that Steve Cohen would turn us into us. So there you go. Let's get some negative reaction to me. I like that. This is from David. David writes, Evan, I've always appreciated your generally rational takes on the Mets, but your recent commentary, especially the Edwin Diaz rant with Tiki on the Rico, veered into emotional territory and bordered on embarrassing. Let's clarify the facts. The Mets made what they felt was a fair initial offer to Diaz and explicitly told him, if you get a better offer, come back and we'll talk. They were open to negotiating. Diaz chose not to return. If he had any genuine interest in staying, he would have re-engaged, but he didn't. Think of it this way. If you made a fair offer on a car and told the seller, if you get a better offer, come back to me because I will negotiate, and they simply sold the car without ever returning, that's on them, not you. Let me start off with this. I get that in a perfect world, we want the player to come back to us. But just because you tell them that doesn't mean they're going to do it. And when you tell a player, we've got wiggle room, yeah, you're telling them you're willing to offer more, but you're also, in a way, insulting them by not offering them more. So every time a player doesn't come back to the team and say, I'm going to give you a chance to match, that means they didn't want to be there? I don't agree with that sentiment, respectfully. He then goes on to Devin Williams. Now let's talk about Devin Williams. He owns a better career ERA, ERA plus, and FIP than Diaz. His whip and Ks per nine are virtually identical. What Williams doesn't have are 3 of the last 6 seasons with an ERA north of 3.40, which Edwin Diaz does. Williams has been more consistent across his career. The recency bias is getting absurd. Diaz had a great 2025, as he tends to every other year, and Devin Williams had a rough first year in New York. But Diaz's own first season in New York was worse, yet somehow it's treated like the end of the world that Diaz left, and Williams might be the closer. Your framing suggests Williams, despite a stellar career and one down year, can't be trusted, while Diaz, who alternates between dominance and volatility, is irreplaceable. The logic doesn't hold. It's not just flawed, it's irrational. Great email, David. I do appreciate that. And maybe I am irrational. I can't fully deny that. A part of the worry about Devin Williams is not what he's done in his career. And I thought I made this point a couple of Ricos ago in talking about how we have all underrated Devin Williams because he had a lousy or unlucky year with the New York Yankees in 2025. We forget how brilliant he was in Milwaukee, and he was. But pitching in this town is different. Pitching in pressurized spots is different. And even though he got to learn New York, and you could argue that last year was a testing ground of pitching in New York City and dealing with the pressures of it, which Devin Williams addressed on Mets Hot Stove. He talked about how it was a culture shock coming to New York, that after opening day in which he was booed, he had to figure out, how does he get home? He didn't even know how to do that. And I thought that was interesting about, the lifestyle aspects we don't think of. So I think it's good that he experienced this town, but no, until he does it here, how can we trust that he's going to be able to do it here? And yes, the answer is, well, Evan, that's not fair. He hasn't had the chance yet. That's a part of why you don't want to lose a guy who's already proven that they can. The idea of Diaz and Williams in this bullpen was electric. It was awesome. I was all for it. Kevin Williams is perfect protection in case Edwin Diaz gets hurt or Edwin Diaz has an awful season. But Edwin has already proven, and it wasn't easy, as we've talked about, that he can pitch here. And now you've added another question to this season. We not only have questions in this lineup and see how they build out the rest of the lineup and questions in the rotation, but now you've added a question at the back end of the bullpen. But here's what I will say to my fellow Met fans. I will say this on episode 600. The good of me and the bad of me is the same thing. I'm a diehard fan. I care about this team. I love this team. And sometimes when you care, in the moment, you're crazy. If you've listened to the Rico for a while, sometimes after losses, after wins, that same irrationality happens. Maybe, and I can't answer this because I got to tell you how I feel in a day or two, maybe I will become more rational in a day or two or 7. But in this moment, December 9th, 2025, was a dark day in the history of the New York Mets. Am I putting it above losing Jose Reyes or Darryl Strawberry? Obviously too young for the Tom Seaver trade. I'm not going to do it yet, but in the moment, today sucks. In this moment, a guy who has been a very good Met for 7 years is a Dodger. So I will defend myself against future Evan and everybody listening that my irrationality comes with the emotion of letting one of the best closers in the sport, the best closer in the sport, and the best closer in my team's history that I watched not only leave, but go to the Dodgers on a contract that a week ago we all thought would have been an easy peasy deal. So I'll own my irrationality a few days from now, but in this moment, this stinks. And I leave you with this message, and I hope this is something we also can laugh at. I fully expect that Pete Alonso will not be a New York Met in 2026. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that David Stearns comes out of his comfort zone and breaks one of his rules. But right now, I am fearful that the irrationality I and many other Met fans have had today will also be featured another day. Because I am very, 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 very worried that we will not see Pete Alonso as a Met again. With that said, I appreciate you listening. We will have more Ricos in the next couple of days. Like I mentioned, we are not hearing from David Stearns today. I don't think that's something any of us want to hear. So we will give you a Rico Brogna episode 601, assuming there isn't more breaking news to react to. We will listen to David Stearns. And we will analyze what he has to say. And I promise you, as I put my right hand up, I will try to be as rational as I possibly can. Thank you very much for listening to another edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.